Slow Deep with Uni was previously the Sensory Playspace podcast. Enjoy conversations from these archives in our first year of podcasting. Hello and welcome back to the Sensory Playspace podcast. I'm your host, Uni, and today I have a super special guest with me that I'm super excited to connect with and to have a chat with. Today I have Natasha I forgot it again. I'll let you say your name and then I'll say it again. The last name I just learned how to pronounce and quickly forgot. Natasha, can you introduce yourself to us, please?
Yes, it's Natasha NawaTaNeko.
NawaTaNeko, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. So I came across Natasha in a really special and interesting way. A few years ago, I started practicing and playing with rope as a switch. And through my journey, I've connected with a handful of partners. And one of the people that I connected with, who I had one of my favorite and most special ties with, after our tie, they went back home to their state and we stayed connected for a while, and they sent me 2 books, and the very first book that they sent me was your book, the Somatics for Rope, which I have here. So if you're watching the video, you can see, and this book will also be linked in the show notes. But so this book has expanded so much for me, and I reached out to Natasha over Instagram a few months back just to plant a seed and be like, hey, can we have a chat? And she said yes, so here we are today. So Natasha, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to us, share anything that feels present or relevant or that you want for us to know about you, and let us know, how are you feeling today?
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be in your podcast and very happy to meet you and chat about ropes and somatics and embodiment and all stuff. So, what shall I say about myself? I hate introductions. I'm coming from. I'm from Russia originally. I grew up in Moscow, and actually, in the environment that did not facilitate much of embodiment or feeling in my body. I'm a lawyer by profession and project manager. So like till certain point in my life, I was just basically like having kind of conventional, very externally structured life. You know, I'm achieving, performing, functioning, pushing, contracting my body, going through things, kind of thing. Up to the point when it was a moment of my personal transition in my like late 20s, early 30s. I left Russia. I lived a bit in Canada. I lived in China. In China, I met my husband, who's my partner now, my husband. And I moved to be with him in Germany, and then I had this like kind of a new start. And I was thinking, well, what shall I do in this new situation in my new life? And somehow through a series of synchronicities, I landed into something that is called sexological bodywork. Maybe you know, it's a recognized profession in the United States, founded by Joseph Kramer. And that was 2015. That was 10 years ago. And this was a very eye-opening, it was a very transformative event for me, meeting Joseph. Not even the methodology. I spent a year on this program. But it was, I think, not even the methodology itself, but meeting him personally that has changed my life. The embodied kindness So just in this encounter convinced me of the value of embodiment, and I kind of that put a seed in my body. So that set me on the path of somatics and kind of having different approach to life and feeling life as something that is lived through the body, yeah, as pulsations, sensations, vibrations, much rather less of thoughts and concepts, and looking for answers as as feelings, not an external answers. You know, like before that, I lived by this external framework. What is good? What I should do? Yeah, this should is very much like I think has become my how you say leitmotif, like a meta topic in my explorations, transitioning out of should into some kind of a how can feel my own truth, my internal truth. Yeah, not the objective truth that like it's not such a thing, but yeah, finding my answers in my body because that's what I learned from Joseph. It's something you feel. So that set me on the path of somatic, and I've had different teachers. I studied with Betty Martin, and I'm studying now with Strozzi Institute, then Petaluma in California. Have had different teachers on this pathway, and then also through personal interest of my partner, I've been introduced to ropes. Also, that's something that came into my life with him and stayed. And then basically, so about 10 years ago till 5 years ago, I was privileged to have this beautiful period in my life when I did nothing but body work, like giving body work, receiving body work, practicing what we studied with Joseph, and at the same time being tied and also attending to myself, like sitting through the classes, but also tying, exploring, researching, learning, performing. So having this like very intense period of the exploration from these two angles coming together: body work and sexual embodiment and rope. So and then basically, and I felt I recognized the same patterns that I see in the body. You know, like what we would learn in body work, bring the person's attention back to what is happening in their body by asking, "What are you noticing in your body?" And like, you know, people tend to check out even if it's a situation of pleasure. Some people have this pattern, and then I notice it's the same checking out in ropes. People also, and that's the same because it's the same body, so it's pattern in the body. So it was like very, very interesting connecting these two realms. And then basically COVID happened, and I had a year of doing nothing but sitting with my thoughts. There were no workshops, no sessions, no anything. I was just sitting in the bubble and for 1 year writing my book, and I wrote I wrote it. It was 5 years ago. It's actually a very old book.
Wow.
It came out in 2020. I think I've transitioned it much more also from this point, but that's a year from book from 5 years ago actually. So that's kind of a story. Sorry, that has become a little
No,
more than
I have
introduction.
so many questions. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to know you more and to kind of like journey with you topically through the process because I know that it's so much deeper and it's so much richer and there's so many more like stories to unfold. But um it's interesting because my journey also began around 2019, 2020 in like embodiment work. And I'm doing like quotes because like it all is about the body, right? It's about becoming in the body, being in the body, staying in the body, expressing through the body, feeling in the body, all of these things. And the term somatic, for me, like I've been like exploring and playing with that word a lot. One, I really like the word somatic. I find it to be a nice, receivable, like just good word. Like I really like the word somatic.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like it just holds so much. But like my journey began, I identify as an artist, and my embodiment journey began through art and photography. And I was transitioning out of sales and marketing into looking at what do I actually want to do with my time. And I had kind of come to this like crossroads where I had to make a decision because a job was ending, a period of time was ending. And I was like, I really want to tell people stories. I really want to create. I really want to express. And I started my first project, which was called Not Without Dirt. And it was all about just documenting people's lives. And through that process, I followed a lot of what was happening. So I would do a thing and then I would follow what responded. And that really led me into embodiment, into the same as you, but different, right? Like I was like, I'd put together this embodiment workshop for 5 women, and we had this beautiful circle. And then I led them each through individual photo sessions where I photographed them nude and like guided them into connecting with their body and being witnessed and being expressed. So somatic work, embodiment work. And I left that workshop and I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And then 2 weeks later, it was like, you know what you're going to do? You're going to go sit in your little cottage by yourself for a year because COVID and quarantine hit. And so I transitioned that work into a self portrait project where I was actually exploring embodiment and studying like the way that I embody and the way I exist and express through my own body and witnessing myself. And so that has kind of like, that was the entry to this journey that has taken so many shapes and forms. And at this point, rope has been so powerful for me. And it has been so literally connective. It's binding, right? But it has been connective to so many layers of myself and my art and expression. Whenever I came across your book, I was like, this book was written for me. So I would love to hear, I guess, from you, like why you wrote it. What pulled you towards writing that? I think you kind of like started to touch on it with the journey of how you got into the work. What because not only is it a good book, like the topic is great, but the details and the information and the structure is really, I feel like, really, really well done. It's really digestible. You can read it in parts. It's like a guide. I use it a lot to refer back to and to compare to other modalities that I'm doing. Like I'm currently in a breath work. I need to complete my breathwork training. But as I was navigating through my breathwork training, I was also coming back to this book and like looking at different parts. And as I like work with clients one-on-one, I come back to this book and look at different parts, even if I'm not doing rope specifically. So I'm really curious as to like what to hear more about like what brought you to writing this book specifically, the why.
Mm. Mm. I felt this calling of carrying the message that I got from Joseph
Mm-hmm.
about the value of being in your body and mm, trying to live by this internal truth rather than by the external framework. So I felt compelled to bring this message,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt also because what does the external framework does? Yeah, it makes us compare ourselves against the like how we should be. Yeah, the should frame,
Mm-hmm.
and um, feeling often inadequate, then I'm familiar with the feeling of inadequacy and shame, and then we shrink, we hide, and we do not bring our gifts to life, right? We don't bring
Mm-hmm.
our art and photography and workshops and everything we have to offer, or I don't know, our stories, our songs. Yeah, because it's like that. So basically, this kind of living somatically for me has something to do with unfolding, with dating, with being soft, dating to show ourselves to the world. So that's what I find important. So I felt like I had this message, and I felt the structure very strongly. What you been complimenting.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like the structure was there, but kind of I also had right before COVID, I also had, because I felt this message, it was not like the desire to write a book, it was I just felt like I need to bring this message across, and I actually practiced, like we had a series of workshops, and workshops were structured like that. It would be like 8 evening classes,
Mm-hmm.
because somatic change happens over time. Yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in 3 hours workshop and and I don't know, one weekend workshop becoming shaman.
Yeah, 1,000%.
It unfolds over time. So I had this kind of regular classes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I was playing with. So the structure was there, and so then the book came rather as more of a result from
Mm.
what has accumulated in me throughout these 5 years, and all the input I got and all the observations I made in myself and others, like watching
Mm-hmm.
students in the class whilst my partner is teaching myself, like students coming to me asking all sorts of questions, trying to give them good answers. That's, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, how the good pain, bad pain was
Mm-hmm.
born. Yeah, because the person was asking how to discern. Yeah, how do I know? Like, it's a lot happening in my body. How to like sort it out? So kind of this, and it was very important for me not to write a how-to book,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to push people. So I felt very strongly it was not even like a choice. It was like that's what I was writing. It's not a how-to book. It's more of a philosophical book, and it's a book inviting the readers to look for their own answers. And I see it as a framework because it's all about questions, right? I
Mm-hmm.
really try not to give answers. Maximum, I give my answers as examples.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my main mission in creating a framework of bringing people into this journey, into this exploration, into this 12 inquiries of what it means for them, how it works for them, why,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. Yeah, and not giving people answers and another external framework or how they can improve themselves. So it was very strongly for me. It's not how to be a good rock bottom or this kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
That was just, yeah, I wanted, it's a more philosophical book, and it's not how to.
Well, I love, 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 love. I love like all the things that you said so much, and I want to kind of just pick them apart a little bit and go a little bit deeper in. For the people who don't know what a rope bottom is, just topically, there's different terms, right, and kink that we use to describe our dynamics. So we have top and bottom, are kind of like the opposites. We have submissive and dominant, which are kind of the opposites. And then I mentioned that I'm a switch. So I kind of play both parts, depending on my mood, depending on who I'm playing with, depending on the space, depending on the activity. So bottom and a submissive are similar, but they often can also serve different roles, or different titles, or the way that the structure is set up can be different, even though they have similarities and overlaps. Um, what I love about what you were just saying is that there's this like passion and this push for empowering people that like there's a perception of disempowerment. I feel like to be submissive, to be a bottom, to surrender your power, to give your power away. Like I think that topically from the outside world, like there's this,
The outside world, women.
yeah, from the outside world, there's this perception that like to be submissive, to be a bottom, to surrender, it means that you're giving your power away. But everything that you're saying is like, how can I empower people to understand who they are so that they can, this is my word, but how, so they can gift their power, so that they can gift connection, so that they can gift the ability to share an experience rather than feeling this disempowerment from a position of surrender.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, would like to say to these people who have this concept, you can only transfer what you have, what you've gained. Yeah, you cannot
Mm-hmm.
give fully. You need to fully inhabit yourself.
Yeah.
It comes only the ability to surrender, like coming in the beautiful state of surrender. It's really profound state. It's very complex. It's very enriching. That's only possible in parallel with the process of personal empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
The more power over ourselves we have, the more we can offer
Mm-hmm.
to someone. And that's not possible without it. So they come hand in hand.
Yeah. I feel that empowerment, like the empowerment piece is tied to safety. Like when we are empowered, like we can create a safer environment for ourselves. I don't know how you feel about that.
Very much, very much. I think um, how I try to think about safety. Okay. So how I try to think about safety is that people often connect concept of safety to some sort of external rules. Like they would ask,
Mm-hmm.
"Is this technique safe?
Mm-hmm.
Is this thing safe or not?" And that's like, what is this question is doing? Like that's asking for some external framework, like external authority, someone who has decided what is safe, what is not for you. They
Mm-hmm.
decided what is safe, what is not for you. And I try to, like, with everything I do, that's the most important point for me. What I'm trying to do, I try to change this question into how does safety feel in your body?
Mm,
And that's different question.
yeah. How does
And
safety feel
that's
in your body? I'm
yeah,
curious.
and that's empowerment. So
Yeah.
I think that would be like that would be me agreeing with what you're saying, that they are connected, and
Yeah.
like feeling like approaching this like everything else really, but like safety, very essential need, yeah, of ourselves, like approaching from this perspective and exploring it, inquiring into it from the perspective how that feels in my body. And when I know, when I'm anchored, when I'm rooted in this feeling, I know how it feels in my body, then I can change the my inner feeling of safety in a sustainable way, yeah, in an
Mm,
organic way, not in a
mm.
destructive way. So I think, yeah, that's very much comes in hand with the empowerment.
Yeah. What does safety feel like in your body? And like how how have you discovered
Mm.
and like been able to define that? Because I think safety is such a challenge. It's so perspective based, it's so situational based, it's individualistically based. And so for people that haven't spent as much time as you or I, like in somatic work and deep study of self and others, like through the body, what's a point or two that they can they can kind of use as a marker to start exploring.
Mm. You know, like maybe everything can relate to, like, if we think of the situation, being with the friend, and it's like someone, as we say, we feel safe with, and we can put down our guards, and you know, we don't have to like perform anything and uphold ourselves, and you know, it's just kind of you feel safe to relax and sink in the situation, like you don't need to like watch yourself. This kind of um like warm hug, like the somatic, it's somatic feeling, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the softness, warm, like soft belly, warm in your heart, deep breath that goes very down, that it's not stuck anywhere, relaxed shoulders, no contraction, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it's yes in your body, it's all right, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm accepted, I belong, I'm being seen. uh, I mean, important, yeah, to like to find how what it is for you, by asking ourselves, like, how do I, can I think of the situation that I would say I felt safe, how that feels in my body, what are the, how you say, exactly as you say, Uni, like, what are the semantic markers? It's not, because it's not a concept, it's not a decision, it's a feeling in our body. And it is, I agree very much with you, it's very complex and very individual how we all perceive the sense of safety, how we establish safety, how we behave in the situation when we don't feel safe, how we cope, yeah, how we restore our sense of safety, what do we do? There are specific patterns. People are very much pattern animals, yeah, so there are like strategy patterns that we learn in early life and then we repeat them, and that's how we, you know, it's a going against some way, something that we perceive as a threat, it's a going away, fleeing, going towards, like trying to appease the situation, like all this kind of um, tendencies and habits and strategies, like they normally have like the imprint, specific imprint, how we normally behave in this situation, when
Mm-hmm.
we feel, okay, maybe I,
Yeah.
I need to do something to restore my sense of safety and so on. So they're very complex and they're very, very individual. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I hear you saying, to paraphrase in my own words, perhaps is it is a practice of awareness, right? Like, because what was coming for me is what got me into somatic work was my own trauma. I have CPTSD, and I've worked for years with a trauma therapist. So one of the bigger ways that I really first started coming into and connecting with my body was through EMDR. And what I took away from that experience was the realization of how numb I had been most of my life and how intense feeling was, how intense sensations were, how like jarring that was. And for me, like, that put me into a place of curiosity and to kind of explore more. Um, what what kink has really gifted to me is containers that have starts and stops that I can explore within. So everyone comes to kink for different reasons, and I think that every reason is valid. My markers are always: is it consensual and is it ethical? And I think that that's like my baseline to start. If I don't know, or if the people that I'm connecting with don't know their own ethics, their own consent, like, we start there, right? Like, we don't move into action. And that's one of the things I love about like the way that you have like outlined this book and the way that you operate, is it's very encouraging of self-reflection and self-connection. And so the way that you're encouraging people to explore all of the parts of the somatic work through rope, through kink, through relationship with these practices is really encouraging people to slow down and to think and to feel and to reflect on what they're feeling and to feel and to reflect on what they're feeling and then to feel and to communicate what they're feeling. And I think the communication piece is so big because somatic work lives in the body and like feeling to me lives in the body where we have emotions, we have thoughts, we have theories that are all here in our mind, but until we like bring it down into the body, like it doesn't actually hold like the strength of truth for me. And so it's really fascinating to me because the structure of kink is in parts very heady, right? Like we start with a negotiation, we start with vetting, which is all very conversational based, it's observational. We're witnessing, we're thinking. And then once we get to a place of collaboration, of common ground, of understanding, then we move into action, which brings us into the body and brings us into feeling. And through that, like every session that I've had, every scene that I've had, every connection I've had, it has been monumental for me in the sense of really learning more about myself. And so when people ask, like, why do you do kink? Why do you do rope? There's a list, like all of the reasons, but my main reason is connection with myself. My main reason is to explore and to discover. Then I use it to create and to express and to feel, and I use it to connect with others. But my primary reason is connection with myself.
Mm. I feel it resonates a lot in me, what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this idea of container of something that has a beginning and an end, where I feel safe to go into very intense feelings because it's contained, because it has a beginning and an end. So I think one of the big learnings in rope was my approach to my own emotions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to something I felt safer and safer to sink into, like also feeling like, oh, it's not a big deal. If I let it run through my body, it actually leaves pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's not world shaking if I feel a bit of anger or a bit of fear of something, like maybe not so, like more, let's say, more difficult emotions, and something like we maybe don't have so much space in the everyday life. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think also is, you could say, one of the healing aspects of BDSM. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's that it offers the possibility of living through the body, going through the things that we do not have normally space for
Mm-hmm.
in our everyday life. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I love how you kind of broke that down. I think the containment brings safety for me, right? Like whenever I go into like mental health therapy with my therapist, like it's always a roller coaster, right? Like I start out and I'm like pleasant and I'm happy and I'm like life is great and I'm so perfect or whatever, like it's my deflection of like, yeah, everything's good and here's all the good things. And whenever I first started working with her, we would spend like 35 minutes of my 50-minute session with me just like chit chat, blah, 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 like wasting my time. And the last like 10 minutes, I would get into whatever was like below the surface for me. And at some point, a few months in, I was like, hey, do not let me waste my time. I sent her an email and I was like, I noticed that I'm doing these things. I'm paying a lot of money for this session that I don't really have. And can you I'm just going to email you for a while whenever things are coming up so that whenever I come into the session, you make me talk about those things, right? Like we bring it to the surface quicker. And that was like really helpful for me. And I worked in that way for a while before I even really connected with kink and BDSM in the way that I'm connecting with it now. And I feel like that was like a really beautiful foundation for me because what I learned, even in my very, very, very first scene, my very, very first session, was like, I can drop into my body because I know that I'm going to be brought back to reality, right? Like I'm going to be brought back into whatever my norm is. So if I need to cry, if I need to scream, if I need to feel scared or angry or small or big or whatever the thing is that's coming to surface, like I have a period of time that I can play with that. And that gives me a lot of sense of safety to challenge myself to feel, because a lot of times feeling is really hard. Maybe not as much as it has been in the past for me, but it can be really hard, especially whenever we're feeling things that are uncomfortable or that we're told are wrong or that we're told to be ashamed of, or we're told that, is too much. That's a big story for me, like the too muchness.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, like you mentioned a few times, pain, right? And that's like an exploration that comes up a lot in the BDSM realm and community, of like exploring pain and curating pain in this very intentional and specific way. And I think something that came to surface for me over the last few years is how close pain and pleasure feel for me. Like they both feel very big and they both feel very scary, and they both come up in this container for me.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Pain, yeah. I mean, it's present also in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this is the thing. We are the same bodies in and out of ropes. So I think also learning from pain and learning together with pain in ropes also has enriched my, I don't know, repertoire of how I deal in pain in everyday life, because it's a body, it's the same body. They
Mm-hmm.
learn. So yeah, pain. Um, I think I learn a lot through ropes about well, it kind of I learned it doesn't kill you. I learned to relax into it. I learned that
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. I learned the softness. I learned to maintain the softness and like feeling under pressure. Pain can be a form of pressure, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and I want to get out of the situation and a kind of form of pressure. So I think one of my learnings was staying soft,
Mm-hmm.
which interestingly makes it more sustainable and facilitates like more space for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, more awareness, more options, more possibilities, more life in the situation when there is pain. I learned to breathe. I learned
Mm-hmm.
to take a breath, and I learned, I don't know, huge respect for my body, because bodies know how to cope with pain amazingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if in this situation we're not freaking out, but we just let our body kind of find a way to exist, they will. Yeah, because bodies are resilient, they want to live, they want to cope, so they'll find a way. So that's also, I think, was very much strong learning connected to pain.
Mm-hmm.
I learned placement of attention. That's a chapter in my book, and it's a big one. Where do we go with our attention when we're in pain? Yeah, you can concentrate on this pain, and it takes over your whole world, and that's all that exists, and you hating it. Or you can kind of like go in your heart and reconnect to the intention why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, or even like the same in life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
experiencing pain, experiencing discomfort, challenge under pressure. You can reconnect to the feeling like why like I'm walking this path. What is important to me? Like what is my
Mm-hmm.
intention? And the pain ceases very
Mm-hmm.
often.
It's shifting the way that we experience and express control. Like whenever we're shifting our perspective or shifting our focus, like it's also shifting how we relate with control, I think. Yeah. What would be something that you feel is beneficial for people that identify and show up in space as submissives or as bottoms? What's something that you feel is important for them to know?
Um, I think it's very important. So, I mean, then number of things. I think so. I think it's very important to be aware of your intention.
Mm.
What you actually, what are you seeking? What do you want to experience? That is coming from inside of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Because I think these days also, especially, I think it's true about rope that it's a bit comes out, it like shows up out there like on the mainstream. You can find just basically people that like do not come from BDSM background,
Mm-hmm.
but they just can be randomly exposed to the raw picture as art on Instagram, and so the imagery is impressive and it impresses us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think like when you go on into that as a way of like personal exploration for yourself, yeah, connecting with others, experiencing, like when you look for the experience. So it's very important to find what it is that I want to experience, what it is I'm seeking, what is my intention, as coming from something from inside. Yeah, not
Mm-hmm.
as an external imagery. I would say that's very important. I mean, it's important to seek, but that for many of us, like for me, that was definitely the case. Like not knowing the answers up front, it was like I would say consent, like knowing like what you want, what you don't want, your risk profile. It's very important. But for many of us, and that was the case for me, like that definitely came along with the exploration. So it's more of a just kind comes through the learning, and then you learn what you want,
Mm-hmm.
what you don't want. That's also a way. So it's not necessarily something like you need to have all the answers. Also answers change over time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you experience that with yourself also over your years. So yeah, that like um, self-awareness, understanding that it's a teamwork, and you have the power also, um, taking this role, like you have a power to influence the situation. Yeah, so like it is done together. It is done by two people together or more people, but it's like a number of people bringing in something into the space. So yeah, like this kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. And I think I love that perspective because my experience has been like I'm a very curious person. I'm a very like introspective person. So I feel like my level of self-awareness sometimes is very different than a lot of people's. But what I've experienced a lot, like in community and scene and connections, is a lot of I don't know, right? So people wanting an experience but not knowing what the experience is that they want. So they're like, oh, I want, like you said, I want that cool picture. I want that thing that I saw on the internet, but not really knowing the depth and like all of the intricacies that come with creating that experience. And so even as I was like reading through the pages and the chapters like in your book, like there were so many pictures painted for me of like, oh, these are better ways that I, as a top, when I'm in my top space, I can communicate to help someone find their language, to find their own introspection, to find their own way of creating a self-empowered space, even though I'm here holding the container with them, because it's hard to curate an experience with multiple people from one lens, right? So if I'm only curating the experience that I perceive or that I want, it's not really a shared experience.
Yeah.
And for me, whenever I'm in rope and I'm in kink and I'm in this space with others, a primary reason is connection with others. So even if I'm curating the space, even if I'm holding the space, I want to ensure that the people that I'm connecting with are also having an experience that they want to have.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, totally. And I think that can be an exploration. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like open and answer exploration. What am I actually doing in ropes,
Mm-hmm.
for instance? But it's important to keep asking this question, asking
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah, I think, and it's like still like you might not have concrete answers, but still there are fantasies, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many ways of doing rope, yeah, of approaching it, and we all are very different. So what it is for you is different. What it is for me, well, pretty unique actually for everyone. So
Yeah.
I think like like still trying to. And there are not always answers, and that's okay. But still trying to find this ways to talk about that by sharing fantasies. Yeah, by
Yeah.
sharing like what this like this feeling can be. I think a way. So it's important to keep asking this question.
Yeah. I'm curious how you feel about like the element of like I can't remember the word that I frequently use, but like one of my requirements for aftercare with me is I like to have like a reflective period. So I like to talk about the experience. I like to have a next day check-in. I like to have like open lines of communication with the person that I'm tying and connecting with. So for me, like it has been part of my boundary with myself that I don't really do pickup play. I don't really tie casually. I don't really tie with people that feel like strangers because there's this like way that humans and like us as a society, I don't know if it's the same where you're at, but here in America, people are very like boxed with the way that they connect. So it's like emotional intimacy is available for certain types of connections, this type of and so there's these like barriers. But I think that whenever I'm sharing any type of intimacy and I'm sharing any type of like connectivity to myself, whether it be emotional or physical or sexual or spiritual, I want a layer of like fluidity and longevity to that, where it's like it's not a start and stop. It's not this hard line of like, okay, well, we don't have a label, so we don't go to these places. Because for me, like, especially with rope and with kink, I'm going to so many places so quickly, regardless where I'm sitting in the container, that I want to talk about it. I want to know what the person with me is feeling, what they experienced. I want feedback. I want to be like, that's part of like my pleasure of like understanding someone else's journey and then sharing what I experienced. But it also is learning and growth for me because it helps me understand whenever I'm topping how to be a better top, and then also the feedback whenever I'm as a bottom, like it also can be helpful because I learn more about how other people are receiving me and what they need from me as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm similar in this respect. We would get along.
Why are you so far away? Come here.
We've been just teaching in New York actually in May
Mm,
and in San Francisco last year in November. So I
okay.
got to experience the US scene a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like what you're referring to, like this boxing, that has not necessarily I experienced that with like people who were at our workshops and at our events. But I think that generally, like Rob more taught, like maybe in a technical way,
Mm-hmm.
like this strong focus on technique.
Mm-hmm.
So people were very much happy for in New York, like when I was doing my surrender talk, and they were happy that that like helps them to open the space for talking about feelings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kind of this aspect of rope rather than just teaching mere technique. So maybe that. But yeah, I'm very reflective person. I like to. I'm not fantasy driven, so I'm very somatic, very much in my body. But after the experience, like the session, whatever, like I would have all these intense feelings, and it's a kind of like journey I've made, and I would want to share with my partner, which I often do. And but I cannot say anything to pick up play because I don't do it either. I'm almost explicitly tying with my partner, who is my also life partner, and we are together. So I'm kind of very much it's given kind of this intimacy and like uninterrupted intimacy in a way. Like I can come to him, like the next day and tell him, and it happens often the next day and the next day because I feel like it's working in my body. Like, have you noticed that? Has been that also true for you? That it's not necessarily after I've been in ropes. Like after I'm normally just high,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more like next day when the interpretations and meanings and I don't know, more of a stories that come to me,
Mm-hmm.
reflections, like they need time kind of to settle into my body. So it's more of like next day would be when I want to share. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think that like I process things very quickly. Like I'm a fast processor, so I can find an answer very quickly. But for me to find depth, like it comes over time. And so my very first time being in rope, my very first time tie was incredible in the sense of I had all the experiences, I felt all the feelings, I had all the sensations. It was fun and exciting and sexy and like weird and like all the things that I wanted to experience that I knew and I didn't know. And I was so high. And then I dropped really bad. I dropped really, really low. And my drop didn't really come for like 2 or 3 days after. For the first couple of days, I was still really high and I was like, wee. And then I had shared about the experience with friends that weren't in kink, that weren't really familiar with it, and I kind of got slut shamed by one of my friends.
Okay.
Her her reaction was not just it wasn't supportive, and through I think that it was a multitude of things like chemically, like I just was so high, like my body was like on adrenaline, and then my body came back down to normal or maybe even a little bit below. So just the extreme change, but then also the emotional impact of like, oh, like I've really exposed myself. And then I shared that exposure with people that I trusted and they didn't hold that well. And I didn't know the person that I had tied with very well. And I wasn't as vulnerable as I am now. And so I was just like, I can control this. And so it was like a really interesting and beneficial process for me where I navigated through so much so quickly. But what I learned and took away from that was I needed to slow down. I
Yeah.
needed to do less, um, do less at once, and allow my body the ability to understand what was happening so that I could build up to the complexities and the extremes that I wanted to experience. And I needed to set up a container that was supportive and safe for me to be in all these layers of myself. And so I don't think that I would have really learned that lesson, or I would have learned it in an even harder way, because the person that I tied with is still a good friend, was a good top. And so they did their job of like letting me know like all the things that I should have known. Like, you can come to me, you can talk to me, you can check in, da 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 da. But it was a me thing, you know, it was a me thing of like not feeling, I was contracting, I didn't feel safe, I didn't feel comfortable receiving what was presented to me.
Yeah. Sometimes we learn hard way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So making good and not so good experiences, but then we learn. I think you did a great learnings out of it about slowing down and so on. I think I've heard like many people have this drop after going high
Mm-hmm.
and then drop. Like I just rolled back to normal. I
Mm,
don't go below normal. So I haven't experienced it myself. Like
yeah.
normally that's the case, but I hear that's often the case for many. Yeah. So definitely it's good to know that about ourselves. It's good to be aware of like what our needs are and what container do we need to feel safe to go into this intense experience. Also, what do I need afterwards? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I feel things on the extreme just on an average day. Like I feel really big. And so that was whenever I teach and I like talk with people about like possibilities of things that you feel, like what I've learned for myself is how do I handle normal situations and what do I feel? And then if I bring that into these extreme situations or these contained situations, it's probable that I might also experience something similar because that's how I naturally process things. And so that's helped me
Makes
create,
sense. Yeah, it's the same body, right?
yeah, like you said before, you take the things that you learn here and you bring it out into the normal world or the,
It will
yeah,
be
like,
same true.
mhm,
Yeah, same
yeah,
body.
same body. Yeah. Um, I'm curious, what is something that you have learned, or what would you suggest people could do to create repair if they have felt or experienced harm? We've talked a bit about pain, and we've talked a little bit. We touched in on drop. Um, and I think that whenever we're in these contained spaces where there's so many things happening so quickly and so many possibilities, it's easy to possibly experience a feeling of harm. It doesn't always mean that it's intentional. It doesn't mean that there's something that was like explicitly wrong. But when we feel harm, when we feel unsafe, that I think that that's a natural feeling that can come up in a situation like this.
Sure. I'm not. I mean, I'm not a native English speaker. I'm not really. I don't really feel connecting to the word harm. Like, what is the feeling behind? Is it hurt? Like feeling
Mhm.
hurt?
Yeah, I think I talk about language a lot because the way we use words really gives them power. For me, I think harm is kind of like a bucket of many feelings, right? So you could feel wronged, you could feel hurt, you could feel pain, you could
Ah,
feel
I
negative, like anything in the like negative spectrum. You could feel sad, you could feel maybe disconnected from your partner, or like maybe you feel disrespected or devalued, or things like that, like in that sort of spectrum. I kind of
does it
bucket them all under harm.
I love that. I love that. I agree because like it can be bigger than just feeling of hurt. Like you say, like you might be pushed into like feeling wrong. For
Hmm.
instance, that's also like it has this kind of different shade. I hear you. But does this concept imply that there is someone outside who has caused it, uh,
Mm.
or it's kind of like what? How's this? How
Yeah.
do you how do you how do you feel that this meaning?
Well, I think if I dissect this with you,
Yeah,
I think that,
we're
so for
talking.
yeah, for me, I think that I feel harm in two ways, right? Like I feel harm sometimes in relationship with others. Like maybe we're having a conversation and something that comes up that you say hurts my feelings, right? So that might feel like harm for me, or something that you do feels hurtful to me. But even in that, for me at this point in this like chapter and layer of my life, like I also have a layer of like self responsibility with my harm, where it's like I do a lot of reflecting on what was my part in this, like what do I need, what did I not tend to or take care of in this space, and what do I need to like move past this hurt, this harm, this feeling that is like heavy for me.
Absolutely. That's the way I would see it. And I would say for me, a sense of self responsibility and kind of like feeling what is my, like feeling myself in the situation, like that's a groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's nice. I mean, if you have been hurt, it's nice to have a recognition of that. And it's nice to be attended with tenderness and hear, I don't know, coming like this recognition and asking what can I do for you, I don't know, I didn't mean it, and so on, coming from like the person that might have caused it, but that might not be the case. Yeah. And then it's back to me, and then it's back to what can I do in this situation that is not good for me, maybe remove myself from the situation, what can I learn about my own behavior choices that I don't know help make me choose it, like how I can move on, how, like what kind of healing I need to do for myself. That's essentially what improves my situation, you know. So I think like, so it's nice to have, but that's not always the case. So like for me it's always the question, okay, back to what can I do for my own feeling,
Mm,
because yeah, I don't want to experience it again. So
yeah.
something like that would be my way of thinking. Thinking
Mm-hmm.
it. That is not to say like you are the one who has been harmed is the problem. No, that is to say, can you find a way of healing to your in yourself, yeah, for yourself in your life, without attaching it to this other person, the situation, or the environment. Yeah, if it's harmful environment, I want to remove myself from the harmful environment. And so on. So like that would be, but otherwise, like it's complex, and yeah, it's very complex and contextual situation. I think. Mm.
It can be very complex for sure. And I think it's important to say these things because as in the positionality of like bottom or submissive, what I've witnessed frequently is this like almost this placement of power or placement of responsibility on someone else. Um, and I think that I feel that like the bottom in the submissive position has so much power, and frequently has more power than like being a top, right? Because when you are moving into that situation with a level of empowerment and agency and autonomy and self knowledge and ownership, you are you're collaborating with the person, but you're also almost leading the scene because you're allowing the things that you want to experience to take up space. And I think that it is really important for us to say, like it is complex and it's layered, but even within those layers, as we move through them and we get to know ourselves differently, we can continue to have the experiences without putting ourselves in positions that make us feel harmed. Because I've heard that, I see it, I have felt layers of it of like, oh, if I don't say yes to this thing, or if I like remove myself from this space or this situation or this community or this connection, will I ever experience rope again? Will I ever be able to tie, again? Will I be tied again? But I think that moving with more of that like agency and ownership, and how can I take responsibility and power and control of my own experience, puts us into positions that allow us to feel what we want to feel.
I'm so glad to hear you saying that. Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's very true observation. So that this is the case, and as we said and as we discussed in the beginning, that it is rope bottoms and submissives who hold a lot of power in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's absolutely no. I mean, it's such a vulnerable position to be on, to be top. Like it's tremendous vulnerability. You're showing yourself so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely admiring and respect, and I think it's very vulnerable position to be in, actually. And yeah, it's a teamwork. It's done together, and I just agree with everything you said. I just agree, and I'm glad to hear you saying that. I think it's something that could be said more. Actually, it's I think more rather unpopular opinion, but I think it's an agency that taking agency for your life at the end that makes a change for you.
Yeah. It's delicate. It's delicate. We have to deliver the information with intentionality and care. And when we do that, we like really uplift ourselves and the people around us, which is what power is, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep you here forever. I could talk to you so much more, but I also want to respect your time. And I want to just start to kind of like wrap us up and close us out. Is there anything that we haven't like moved into that you feel really excited to share or that you feel is really important as part of this conversation?
No, I think that actually I've been pretty good
Awesome.
for a first talk.
Yeah, well, I hope that I could have you back. I know that you're currently doing some research about inner safety. I want to stay in touch. I want to stay in the loop of what you're doing. And if you make it back to California, I hope you let me know because I want to come see you. I want to come experience your space in real life.
Very possible next
Yeah.
year. Very possible.
Awesome. Well, we do have a rope studio here in San Diego. We do have like a community here, which is what brought me into this work and this world and my passion for it. Where can people find you? How can people keep in touch with you? I'll
Yeah.
also drop it into the show notes.
Good question. Thank you so much. I have a website, Somatics.com, where I write a blog. So additionally to my book, you can also read me every Saturday, every Saturday morning on my blog. So check it out. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Substack since last week or since this weekend. I'm very fresh.
Beautiful.
So please feel free to check me out. I feel very very so far very lonely there.
It's funny. I'm on Substack. I've been really dedicated to building community in that space because my first artistry is as a writer. And everyone, like in the notes, which is kind of like a Twitter feed, everyone's like, it's so great to be here. It's just so positive. Everyone's just like, I'm a writer and like there's only writers here and I have 3 followers and I feel so amazing about my 3 followers. And it's just like really enduring and cute. And just really wonderful how like writers really like uplift one another where I feel like spaces like Instagram have felt so dead for me lately. So yeah, I'll find you on the Substack. I'll link all of these things in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you again so much for your time and for this conversation and for your beautiful work. And really just not only being self-reflective, but sharing all the things that you're discovering with all of us as a mirror to explore more of ourselves and to live more intentionally and curiously and in our bodies, because it's so beautiful to be in this little container in human form.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank
Would
you.
love to be back.
We will have to have you back soon. Thank you for joining us today. This is Slow Deep with Uni, formerly known as the Sensory Playspace podcast. You can find out more about today's show and all the things that we dive deep into at slowdeep.co and slowdeep.substack.com.